Octavius V. Catto had a family with his parents and 5 siblings. His father was a preacher and his mother sadly passed away while giving birth to the 4th child. His father soon remarried and had more children. His siblings included his older sister, Catherine, his older brother, William, and the 3rd child was Octavius Valentine. The other children included Francis, Garrison, Erskine, and Beeman. The Catto family originally lived in South Carolina and eventually planned on moving to Africa in 1847. When the plan failed, Octavius' father decided to settle in New Jersey for 2 years before living in Philadelphia. As an 11-year-old, Catto lived at 107 North 5th Street in the Spring Garden ward with his family. When he became a teacher at the Institute for Colored Youth, he moved into a boarding house at this location, 812 South Street, where he resided until his unfortunate demise.
Founded in 1807 by John Gloucester, the first African Presbyterian church, located here at South 7th and Bainbridge Streets, was one of the first 5 African American churches in Philadelphia. It was also the oldest African American Presbyterian church in Philadelphia. The church has since been demolished and relocated to Girard.
His father, William, served as a minister there and also at several other major African American churches throughout Philadelphia and several other states. These churches often were used as meeting spaces for black political networks as well as anti-slavery activity.
The Institute for Colored Youth, also known as ICY, was founded in 1837 at this location, 716 Lombard Street. The school remained at this location until it was moved in 1902 to become Shawnee University. After a discouraging experience of being the only black student at the Allentown Academy for Boys, Octavius' father enrolled him as a student at ICY. Catto soon became the star pupil and later graduated as class valedictorian in 1858 at the age of 19. He soon began to teach Latin and Greek in Washington, D.C., and a year later came back to ICY to teach English and math. Soon after this appointment, Catto led his students of ICY to become soldiers for the Union during the Civil War. Catto was a leader for his students and a strong representative for the African American community and children of Philadelphia.
In 1866, Catto formed the city's 2nd black baseball team. The Jefferson Street grounds was a baseball field that held the first interracial baseball game. It was played at 25th and Jefferson Street. After playing 1 season, they had great success after achieving a 9-1 record. On September 3, 1869, the Olympics, an all-white team played against Catto and the Pythians. Each individual team had the authority to call their own balls, strikes, saves, and outs. The umpire were only to hear appeals from each side. The Pythians chose not to appeal to any bad calls. Ultimately, the final score was won by the Olympics, 44-23. Even though they had lost, Octavius Catto and his team played with dignity and passion, facing unfair calls, and in the end they were able to prove themselves in a racist community.
Out of the 37 Freedmen's Bureau banks opened in the 17 states and the District of Columbia, Octavius V. Catto was the 6th person in Philadelphia to open up a bank account at this location, 919 Lombard Street. Catto and other black leaders deposited thousands of dollars, making the bank one of the most successful operations in Philadelphia. In 1865, Congress established a bank for people to trustfully deposit their savings. The Bureau of Refugees, more globally known as the Freedmen's Bureau, provided housing, medical aid, and food to millions of poor people and former slaves. Catto, along with other ICY, Institute Colored of Youth, students worked on the political front to ensure Philadelphia's free black population benefited from this War Department initiative. Soon, the Freedmen's Bureau could not carry on any longer due to the shortage of materials and funds.
A major accomplishment of Octavius Catto was how he changed the transportation system in Philadelphia. The first streetcars in the region were running on steel rails and pulled by horses. The mass transit system was a network of privately owned streetcars that prohibited black riders. Many people in Catto's generation wanted to persuade the streetcar owners to allow black Philadelphians to ride. However, Catto and his followers chose a different path and decided to put pressure on the Pennsylvania state legislature to pass a law. They also engaged in civil disobedience, much like later civil rights heroes such as Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Catto led efforts to stage sit-ins on streetcars to raise awareness of the injustice. Catto's hard work and the determination alongside other Black Philadelphians to achieve equal access to streetcars paid off. On February 5, 1867, the bill Catto helped to author for the desegregation of streetcars had finally passed. On March 22, 1867, Governor John Geary signed the bill and Black Philadelphians could at last ride the streetcars alongside of their white peers.
In the 1860s, Catto became a national spokesman and civil rights leader. He pledged that black men would vote Republican and fight for the ratification of the 15th Amendment. He played a leading role in the passing of the 15th Amendment, extending voting rights to all black men, which was passed by Congress in 1869 and ratified by the states a year later. The Fifth Ward polling place was where Octavius Catto started the advocacy of voting rights for African Americans. Disapprovals from the Irish immigrants arose following the 15th Amendment, and thus many black men were physically assaulted by city police officers and Irish immigrants while they waited in line to vote at this location of 6th and Lombard Streets.
On October 10, 1871, as Catto was nearing his home at this location, 812 South Street, at approximately 3:30 p.m., a streetcar filled with black and white passengers passed by. From behind, Frank Kelly, an Irish immigrant, shot Catto numerous times. He was immediately sent to the hospital, and later that day, Catto, at the age of 32, died of his gunshot wounds. Thousands of people, both black and white, went to pay their respects at 5th Brigade headquarters. There, Catto's body was laid out. This was the largest public funeral since Abraham Lincoln. Octavius V. Catto should be remembered as one of the greatest civil rights leaders in our Philadelphia history, and it's a shame his life was cut so short.
Despite the fact Octavius Catto died over a century ago, his legacy continues to be honored in his hometown of Philadelphia.
Recently, Mayor Jim Kenney oversaw the construction of a statue of Catto in front of City Hall, which pays homage to Catto's determination to undo the injustice in his community. The statue was erected in September of 2017.
The memorial is titled A Quest for Parity, which references Catto's life goals to eliminate racial inequality. It includes a voting box and pillars which allude to trolley cars, highlighting his campaign for African American voting rights and desegregation of Philadelphia transportation.
The statue will hopefully continue to stand for many years to come and inspire future generations for equality for all people and all human lives.